Good evening. The princess who spent her life in the relentless glare of the public eye died in a speeding car in Paris, apparently trying to evade pursuing photographers.
Princess, who had spent her entire life in the unrelenting gaze of the public, passed away in a car that was traveling at an excessive speed in Paris. There were millions of people who fell in love with Princess Diana, who was born Diana Spencer in 1961. Almost immediately, she became well known for her commitment to various humanitarian causes. Diana became a well-liked figure all over the world due to her innate capacity to connect with others and her unconditional generosity. Despite the intense scrutiny from the media and the difficulties she has faced in her personal life, her legacy will live on thanks to the charitable work she has done and the influence she has had on the royal family. In this video, we will present some fresh perspectives on the circumstances surrounding her passing. Princess Diana, who was frequently referred to as the People's Princess, had a remarkable journey from her early life to becoming a global icon. The surgeon who attempted to transplant her had a remarkable journey. Her name was Diana Frances Spencer, and she was born on July 1, 1961 in Sandringham, Norfolk, England. She was the fourth of 5 children that Earl Spencer and his wife Frances had. The early years of Diana's life were marked by a privileged upbringing within the British aristocracy. However, the path that led her to become a royal was not an easy one. The British royal family owned the Sandringham estate, where Diana spent her childhood. Park House, a residence on the estate, was where Diana spent her childhood, managing the Spencer family estates and holding the title of Viscount Althorp. Before eventually becoming the 8th Earl Spencer, her father was a notable figure in his own right. He was also the proprietor of the Spencer family estates. It was said that her mother was a charming and lively woman, and she was a socialite who was well known for her work in the charitable sector. Diana Spencer was raised in an atmosphere that exuded a sense of privilege and high society due to the exceptionally high social standing of the Spencer family. Diana's early years were not without some difficulties, despite the fact that she came from an aristocratic family. Despite the fact that Diana was only 7 years old at the time, her parents divorced because their marriage was troubled. Consequently, her relationship with her mother became strained as a result of the significant impact that this event had on her. Following the conclusion of the divorce proceedings, Diana's mother relocated, leaving her children, including Diana, in the care of their father. During her formative years, Diana was educated at a number of different schools. After completing her education at Riddlesworth Hall, a private school for girls, she went on to complete her education at Westheath Girls' School. Diana's academic performance at Westheath was not particularly strong, but she excelled in a variety of extracurricular activities, including sports. In 1978, Diana's life took a significant turn when she relocated to London after graduating from the prestigious Institut Alpin Vita Monet in Switzerland that she had attended. This change was made with the intention of assisting her in developing greater self-confidence as well as social skills. After thriving in this new environment, Diana went back to London with a fresh sense of purpose and a new sense of where she wanted to go. Due to the fact that she lived in London, she was able to interact with a large number of notable people, including members of the royal family of the United Kingdom. Diana's introduction to Prince Charles, the heir apparent to the throne of the United Kingdom, came about as a result of these social connections. The year 1980 marked the beginning of Charles and Diana's relationship, and the following of their courtship was closely monitored by the media. In a short amount of time, Diana became a figure of public interest. In February of 1981, the couple made the announcement that they were engaged. A great deal of excitement and anticipation was expressed in response to the announcement, not only in the United Kingdom, but also all over the world. The wedding, which took place on July 29, 1981, at St. Paul's Cathedral in London, was a stunning event that was broadcast on television to millions of people around the world. Following their wedding, Diana and Charles began a string of public appearances and official responsibilities that they were responsible for. It didn't take long for Diana to transition from being a royal consort to becoming a significant figure in her own right when she was given the title of Princess of Wales. There were positive and negative aspects to the intense media scrutiny that was placed on Diana's life. In spite of the fact that it brought greater visibility to her charitable work and exposed her to the general public, it also put a significant amount of strain on her personal life. Diana's life was tragically cut short in 1997 as a result of a tragic event. Not only that, but in the years that followed, a multitude of conspiracy theories were published under the same name. Not too long ago, The surgeon who attempted to save Princess Diana revealed some shocking information to the entire scientific community. First things first, let's find out what took place that evening. How tragic it is. Her life was a whirlwind of public adoration, intense media scrutiny, and charitable work. Princess Diana was a prominent figure in the world. However, her final days were marked by a tragic chain of events that captivated the attention of people all over the world. In order to comprehend the gravity of the events that transpired on that fateful evening, it is necessary to investigate the sequence of events that led up to the tragedy, the specifics of the accident, and the immediate circumstances that surrounded it. On August 30th, 1997, Princess Diana was in Paris, where she was taking a short break from the media frenzy that had surrounded her over the previous few days. There were several days that Diana had been in France, and she had been staying at the Ritz Paris Hotel. The vacation was supposed to be a low-key retreat, but it ended up becoming the setting for the tragic events that were to take place further down the road. Prior to the confirmation of Diana's arrival by a number of different media outlets, her presence in Paris had been largely unnoticed. This heightened the level of interest that the media had in her movements. Dodi Fayed, Diana's companion, had been spending time with her in the days leading up to the 31st of August. Mohammed Al-Fayed, an Egyptian businessman who owned the Ritz Paris Hotel, was Dodi's father. Dodi was the son of Mohammed Al-Fayed. On the evening of August 30th, Diana and Dodi were at the Ritz Paris, where they had a private dinner before finalizing their plans to depart from the hotel later that same evening. It turned out that the mode of transportation that they decided to take was a significant factor in the tragic events that were going to take place. In order to get away from the intense media attention that had been following them throughout their stay at the Ritz Paris, Diana and Dodi made the decision to leave the hotel. A Mercedes-Benz S280, a vehicle that is typically associated with luxury and comfort, was the vehicle that they chose to drive in late at night. The deputy head of security at the Ritz Paris, Henri Paul, was the one who was behind the wheel of the vehicle. He was qualified to handle such responsibilities and was responsible for ensuring the safety of high-profile guests. He had previous experience in this area. The need to avoid being detected by the paparazzi, who were notorious for their aggressive pursuit of celebrities, was the primary factor that led to the decision to leave the Ritz at that hour. The departure of Diana and Dodi was a calculated move that was made in order to avoid the crowds of photographers who had been waiting outside the hotel for several previous days. The Mercedes was followed by a group of paparazzi who were riding motorcycles and were intent on taking photographs of the high-profile couple as they left the hotel at approximately midnight. During the course of the car's journey through the streets of Paris, the paparazzi engaged in a high-speed pursuit following the vehicle. As the Mercedes raced through the city, a number of photographers on motorcycles were chasing after it, each of them vying to get the best possible photograph on their motorcycle. The paparazzi were forced to engage in risky maneuvers in order to keep up with the car, which made the pursuit both dangerous and chaotic. In the vicinity of 12:23 km, during the 31st of August in 1997, the Mercedes made its way into the Pont de l'Alma tunnel, which is a significant road tunnel in Paris. At the time that the car was getting closer to the tunnel, it was moving at a high speed, which was estimated to be somewhere between 65 and 70 miles per hour. It was reported that Henri Paul, who was under the influence of alcohol, was driving the vehicle at a speed that was significantly higher than the limits that were recommended. An extremely precarious situation developed inside the tunnel. The concrete pillar that was located in the central reservation of the tunnel was struck by the Mercedes, which was traveling through the tunnel. Both the car and the tunnel were severely damaged as a result of the impact, which also caused a chaotic scene to unfold inside the tunnel. The collision was so severe that it caused the vehicle to spin out of control up until the point where it finally came to a stop. Right away, it was clear that the collision had a significant impact. At that moment, Henri Paul's life had been taken away by the impact. Another person who passed away as a result of the collision was Jody, who was seated in the front passenger seat. When emergency services arrived at the scene, Princess Diana was seated in the back of the car. She had suffered severe injuries and was unconscious at the time of their arrival. However, the conditions inside the tunnel made it difficult for rescue workers to perform their duties. Emergency responders arrived at the scene of the accident in a short amount of time. After Diana was extracted from the wreckage, she was taken to the Pitié-Salpêtrière hospital, where the medical staff worked diligently to save her life. Because Diana's injuries were too severe despite their best efforts, she was pronounced dead a couple of hours after they arrived at the scene. there have been a lot of people who have suspected that the death was not the result of an accident, and some of them have even pointed the finger at Prince Charles, who is now king, and his wife Camilla. However, more will be discussed later on regarding this and the surgeon's revelation. In the aftermath, the beginning of the 31st of August in 1997 sparked an outpouring of grief and scrutiny all over the world. An intense effort was made to save her, and the subsequent controversy that ensued captured the attention of people all over the world. The emergency response to the crash and the events that followed were marked by these actions. Within a short amount of time, emergency services arrived at the scene. Although firefighters and paramedics arrived at the tunnel in a matter of minutes, the conditions made it difficult for them to perform their duties. As a result of the extensive damage that had been done to the vehicle, the tunnel was dark and it was difficult to access the wreckage. In addition to being unconscious, Diana was confined to the back of the vehicle. In the end, she was rescued from the wreckage and taken to the hospital in an emergency situation. It took approximately 1 hour to travel from the location of the accident to the hospital. Diana was immediately taken into surgery upon her arrival. However, it was already too late at this point. Or was it? A certain amount of ambiguity exists in the reports concerning Diana's final words. There are those who believe that she may have been conscious and spoken a few words immediately after the collision. However, the specific details of these statements are unknown, or the individuals who heard them have not been able to communicate them to the rest of the general public. An immediate and profound response from the general public was prompted by the rapid dissemination of the news of Diana's passing. Those who heard the news were taken aback and filled with sorrow all over the world. Everyone in the public and the royal family of the United Kingdom were in a state of mourning. As a result of the extensive coverage that the media gave to Diana's passing, the arrangements for her funeral became the center of attention all over the world. The events that followed the collision were marked by a significant amount of controversy and accusations. A major point of contention emerged regarding the role that the paparazzi, who had been pursuing Diana's car, played in the incident. A significant number of individuals held the photographer's aggressive pursuit responsible for the hazardous conditions that ultimately resulted in the collision. As a result of the crash, discussions regarding the ethics and practices of paparazzi became more intense. The media's unrelenting pursuit of celebrities, including Diana, had been an issue for a long time. Henry, who was driving, was also subjected to scrutiny. Paul was found to have been under the influence of alcohol at the time of the collision, according to the preliminary findings of the investigation. In light of the findings, questions were raised regarding his mental state and the choices he made while he was behind the wheel. In addition, there were discussions regarding whether or not he had been speeding and whether or not his actions contributed to the severity of the collision. It was also investigated what role the Ritz Paris, the hotel where Diana and Dodi had been staying, played in the scandal. Henry Paul was the deputy head of security at the Ritz, and his involvement in the tragic events raised questions about the hotel's responsibility to ensure the safety of its high-profile guests. Henry Paul was the person who was responsible for their safety. Numerous investigations and discussions were fueled by the intense media scrutiny and public interest. However, the core issues remained focused on the tragedy and whether or not it was set up by Charles, Diana's ex-husband. Charles and Diana had only separated a year prior, and people believed that Diana might reveal something about the royal family. There were a few things that the surgeon who attempted to save her had to say about that. But before we get to that, let's talk about what transpired after Diana passed away. Being sad. It was the death of Princess Diana that shook the entire world. There was a period of profound sorrow and introspection that was marked by the reactions of the British royal family, which included Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Charles, as well as the elaborate funeral arrangements. The news of the passing of Princess Diana came to light while Queen Elizabeth was on vacation at Balmoral Castle, which is located in Scotland. One of the initial criticisms leveled against the Queen and the royal family was that they appeared to be emotionally detached. During the time that the Queen remained at Balmoral, there was a significant sense of disconnection from the overwhelming public grief that was taking place in London and all over the world. Because the royal family was not visible to the general public during the first few days of mourning, speculation and criticism were fueled by their absence. It seemed as though some of them were aware that it was going to take place. On the other hand, the Queen's response was more nuanced than could have been initially perceived. After that, she was subjected to a significant amount of pressure to respond to the outpouring of grief by the nation. She eventually addressed the situation in a more direct manner after she became aware of the profundity of the public's sorrow. A televised address was given by the Queen to the nation on September 5th, during which she conveyed her condolences and acknowledged the impact that Diana's passing had on the nation. As a signal of a shift towards more public acknowledgement of the loss and a more empathetic approach from the monarchy, the speech delivered by the Queen was an important moment in the process of mourning. However, for Prince Charles, the task of breaking the news to his two sons, Prince William and Prince Harry, was a task that was extremely difficult and emotional. This was not so much about the grief that he experienced, because he had been with Camilla for decades. William was 15 years old when Diana passed away, while Harry was only 12 years old at the time. The news was brought to them at Balmoral, where they were staying with their grandparents at the time. The influence that it had on William and Harry was significant. They were left with a significant void in their lives as a result of Diana's sudden absence, because she had been a mother who was engaged and affectionate. As the royal family struggled to come to terms with the public scrutiny and the intense media coverage that surrounded every aspect of their lives during this time period, they were already reeling from the shock that they had experienced. Because Charles and the boys had to come to terms with the loss and figure out ways to support each other through the process, Charles' role as a father became even more important than it had been to begin with. It was unprecedented in terms of both scale and emotion that the public mourned the loss of Princess Diana. Her funeral, which took place on September 6th, was an event that was meticulously planned and reflected both the profound respect that was held for Diana as well as the complexity of her standing in public life. Westminster Abbey was the location of the funeral service. The ceremony was attended by a diverse group of dignitaries, celebrities, and regular people who came to pay their respects to the deceased through attendance. The service was distinguished by a combination of elements that were both traditional and personal. The eulogy that was delivered by Diana's brother was able to capture the essence of Diana's character, as well as the impact that she had on those who were around her. His address was notable for the emotional depth it contained, as well as the fact that it addressed the role that the media played in Diana's life and death. There was a powerful demonstration of public mourning that took place during the funeral procession through London. The coffin of Princess Diana was transported from Kensington Palace to Westminster Abbey, accompanied by a solemn procession that included members of the royal family, as well as significant figures from her life. The parade route was lined with thousands of mourners, and the streets were filled with floral tributes and messages of sympathy from people who were grieving. Images taken at the funeral have become iconic representations of the outpouring of grief that has occurred on a national and international scale. The royal family was confronted with a complicated range of feelings and responsibilities in the days that followed the funeral memorial service. The reaction of the public continued to dominate the media, and the royal family was required to address the public's desire for answers and closure through their actions. In the aftermath of Diana's death, there were also significant discussions about the role of the media, the responsibilities of those who pursued her relentlessly, and the possibility that there was foul play involved. Mohammed Al-Fayed, an Egyptian billionaire and the father of Dodi, was one of the most vocal proponents of conspiracy theories regarding Diana's death. Other individuals who supported these theories included Dodi's father. According to Mohammed, the crash was not an accident, but rather a deliberate act that was orchestrated by powerful forces. He made this assertion in public from the very beginning. According to him, Diana and his son were targeted because of their relationship, which he believed was perceived as a threat to certain influential figures. He suggested that this was the reason for the targeting. Mohammed made a number of assertions, one of which was that the death of Diana was the result of a plot that involved the British royal family, as well as other high-ranking officials working together. As a result of the perception that Diana was a troublemaker who could potentially disrupt the image of the royal family, he asserted that there were plans to eliminate her. Mohammed asserts that the accident was staged to give the appearance of a typical car accident, but in reality, it was a deliberate attempt to take the life of the victim. In addition to his belief that Diana was carrying Dodi's child, he also believed that those in positions of authority were purposefully undermining the relationship between the two of them. These allegations were founded on a number of different factors. The idea that Princess Diana was murdered, not in the accident itself, but rather at the hospital where she was taken, was another conspiracy theory that surfaced after the death of Princess Diana. Some have speculated that Princess Diana's death was not solely due to the injuries she sustained in the crash, but was part of a larger conspiracy involving foul play at the hospital. These claims suggested that her death was deliberate, aimed at silencing her or concealing a plot against her. Dr. Bruno Rioux, the chief surgeon at Pitié-Salpêtrière Hospital, firmly denied these allegations, stating that his team had done everything possible to save Diana. In response to widespread conspiracy theories, Operation Paget, launched in 2004 by the Metropolitan Police, investigated the circumstances surrounding Diana's death. The operation sought to provide clarity, reviewing crash evidence, medical reports, and witness statements. Its 2006 report concluded that the crash was an accident caused by a combination of speeding and driver Henri Paul's impairment due to alcohol and prescription drugs. No evidence was found to implicate the British royal family or suggest foul play in Diana's medical treatment. Recently, Dr. Monsef Dahman, a surgeon who treated Diana, shared his first detailed account of that tragic night. He described the chaos and pressure the hospital staff faced, as well as the severe internal injuries Diana had sustained. Despite exhaustive efforts to save her, her injuries were ultimately unsurvivable. While Monsef reaffirmed the findings of Operation Paget, he hinted at deeper tensions surrounding the events, sparking renewed speculation and controversy. Every single thing is altered by Monsef's insight. Assuming that Charles was in fact involved in Diana's passing, it is inevitable that he will be arrested, and the repercussions of this would send a shockwave throughout the entire world. Why would he do something like that? In their pursuit of happiness, did Charles and Camilla consider Diana to be a potential barrier? Was Diana aware of something that she ought not to have known? What are your thoughts on what took place that evening? Leave a comment below and let us know.